Hey everyone, it's Kai here. I run an AI agency called Blue Horizon AI where we help other business owners automate their sales processes. And in this video I'm going to show you how we plan to get our next 15 clients in the next 50 days. If you clicked on this video looking for an exact blueprint on how to do this, then unfortunately this video is not for you. The whole idea around this is for me to show real agency struggles, overcome them, and reap all of the rewards by filming it all on camera. So if you're interested to see what my strategy is or what that plan looks like, then feel free to check out my other YouTube video about that. But in this video I'm going to show you what we've done in the past, what our current plan is, and the exact setup that we're using to execute on this. And all the resources that we're currently using will be available to you for free in the description below. Alright, so first off, let's walk through some of the things that we've done so far, and I'll just walk them through one by one. So firstly, warm outreach has probably been like the most profitable one for us so far to this point. It's probably the one we've done the most volume, or one of the most volumes at, and essentially warm outreach for us has been like, we've been able to take the leverage of the people that we know and just go like crazy with the amount of volume. That's probably actually the first way we started doing things, and that resulted in our first 3 clients. So this was around like the outreach that we did in communities, that sort of stuff. And what I liked about it was that we didn't necessarily, we weren't too salesy around it, you know. We really just wanted to help people out. Sometimes we offered our services for free, and so that contributed as well to that 3 clients as well. Now cold calling was, again, if I had to estimate, we've done just under 80 phone calls, and that generated us 1 client. So the thing with phone calls was, at the time we didn't actually have an ICP, so an actual client to sell to, so we were more basing it off of people who we imagined we'd be able to help with no real research or personalized script behind it. So that's why, I mean, the conversion rate weren't too big. Like, the volume wasn't also that big, but that's what could have been better there. And for cold emails, we've done 2 campaigns, I think, so a total of around, I would say, 200 emails. We actually have not gotten any clients from cold emails yet. From our last campaign, we generated 10 interested leads, who we're following up with this coming month. And from those, we should get some good business going. But overall, right, so not very good volume, which we completely understand, and I'll go into why in a second. But because of the ones that we did have, so total of 4 clients here, we have repeat business. So projects that we went into, like, more than one project, and I guess that left us focusing on how much value we could provide to a small group of people rather than doing less value for a larger number of people. Now I get it, the whole game is to get as many clients and stuff, but as a starting point, we really took the opportunity to learn from the small group of people rather than, you know, spraying it to a lot of people. So these repeat business gave us these 6 projects that we've had, which, again, I understand, like, when looking at outreach, it's all about volume, pumping out as much as you can into like the top of the funnel there, so that by default you get more people bottom of the funnel who are closed. But again, ask the question, why have we been doing this for 5, nearly 6 months and only done this amount of outreach? Well, I would say that number one is that half of that time we were learning these solutions. So I would say, not coming from a techie background as a developer or anything, it was more about me trying to learn more about these services in iteration over what I could build for ourselves rather than what I could sell for other people that could potentially go wrong. So with this business model, we really saw the opportunity to be able to fail and no one essentially know about it. So we kind of took it from that angle, and that was for the first 3 months. And then also you have to note that at one point we're 18 years old, just fresh out of school, so we took a month just traveling and working overseas, which I gotta say, from an experience standpoint, it's positive and stuff, but from a business standpoint, it absolutely kills your momentum, especially when you're starting out. So if you're trying to grow a business quickly off the ground, I wouldn't recommend that. but obviously we were with the risks. We are young and starting out, so that's something that we just chose to do, and which is why we don't have much volume throughput going on here. Now, we could actually stick to this and just go, okay, we're actually going straight into cold calls, and we're cold calling people, 100 people a week, and through that volume, as Hormozy says, volume negates luck, and there will be no way that we don't get a client. But essentially, through this whole time, and if you check out that last video that we made as well about our plan and our strategy and everything, we want to knock as many birds as we can with the same stone. So the most high leverage ways of doing that based on the cards that are available to us. So that's why we're not going on with any more like warm outreach or even cold outreach. What we are going to go ahead with is cold email, which is where we believe we have the biggest sort of lever to pull there. And that's what our current plan is being about, with a few extra steps. So just to walk through, our whole plan, I like to picture it as a cycle. So because we're not specifically solving the solution in industry, it's more sales solutions, which applies to all industries. The question that we're asking ourselves is, what business has the biggest pain, right? So we've worked with insurance clients, and we know that insurance is a very volume-based business model, insurance brokerage. And so they rely on their salespeople and their outreach systems to just run as many people as they can through that machine. So that was one example that we saw. We actually worked with a client. We saw the benefits and the pain point that was there and what our solution offered. So that was one. And within a car dealership as well. So me and my business partner, Donica, we have contacts in the car dealership, and we've talked to them, and again, selling, right? And in the B2B context, it's all about that volume as well, especially if you're working at a lower end dealership where client relationships aren't as valued. If you're working at Porsche or something, that we've already realized that customer to salesperson relationships matter. So what we're doing is we're looking for a target market without necessarily having to work for them or being recommended by one. And we're researching this and finding these pain points through Manus AI. So this first campaign that we've launched just this morning has all come from Manus AI, and the original hunch that I had. So looking over ChatGPT, doing some smaller researches, and then by the way, the research capabilities of this far exceeds ChatGPT, or at least in my experience, because it's been great. So this is the research that Manus AI provided us. I have a PDF version of this as well, but essentially this is a very long page showing statistics and specific to New Zealand and Australia, which is where we're targeting. But we're targeting business coaches, right? Because we thought it was a good idea to have the B2B side of things. So whatever problems we solve for ourselves, another B2B business will also be likely to find that. So that's the first thing that we're doing. The first part of the cycle is researching, and then prospecting them will all come from these sort of tools. So Apify, you look at Apollo, and Anymail Finder to find emails. These sort of tools that we're going to be using a lot to prospect them and run them through the systems. And I put an arrow here with qualification, because from the data that we extract, we can directly map that with our, view or idea of the perfect client, the ideal client, So there's two types of qualification. One is when you're actually interacting with the client to find out if they have the funds or the budget to actually cover for the cost. That's usually relevant in inbound sort of systems. So let's say you see someone on Instagram, a personal one-to-one fitness coaching or whatever, you would usually take the step to message them, and it would be their mission to qualify you and find out if you're fit for their program. But in this case, since we're extracting all of this data at volume, and I'll go into what sorts of volume as well in a minute, we can compare that directly to our ideal client. So in this case, it's the pain point that they have, which usually comes from this part, but it's the pain point, the amount of people that they have, and we thought it was good to look at their time in the market, which I'll go into a second why we chose that. And this, whatever the result of this is going to become our outreach method. So that's why I kind of explain like these two parts of it at once, because they go hand in hand. And then enriching them, we need to find a certain decision maker and then research them using Perplexity. And then finally, the personalization aspect of it can come from Claude and ChatGPT, and then the actual platforms will be email and LinkedIn. And what will distinguish between them is a qualifying criteria. So we've actually got one qualifying criteria that is for general clients that we would like to work with, but if the data shows that there's a client who we really believe we can help and who would love working with ourselves, then we trigger this LinkedIn function as well. So essentially it's an omni-channel outreach system that we are building. So all of this, part 1, feeds into part 2, which is the outreach. And for every cycle of this, so for every iteration, we get 1,000 leads in that given industry and within the radius or the area of Australia and New Zealand. And we do the outreach through email or LinkedIn. Now the qualification criteria for these two, so for anyone who's over 150 people and in Australia, we qualify as a general outreach sort of thing, so it's cold email. For context, we are in New Zealand, so which is why people being in Australia doesn't quite have the same geographical sort of touch when you're trying to reach out to them. You want to have that some sort of like common denominator, but they're still qualified with being under 150 people and like having the pain points and whatnot, so they still get that cold email. And then if they are between 11 to 50 employees and in the New Zealand market, they get a cold email and LinkedIn. Now, this might seem specific, and it is intentionally, because LinkedIn only allows you a certain number of connection requests along with the messages and everything. So we made this very specific, but as I'll show you in a second, we got a lot of people who are qualified for this, who we're quite excited to reach out to as well, because by looking at the data and stuff, we find that like it really correlates with people who we've talked to in the past, worked with in the past, and we said, yeah, like this is the sort of person who really needs the kind of product, the kind of solutions that we sell. So 11 to 50 because just the size, and the market, the time in the market, because we think that people would have an easier time adjusting to the technology, right? So often a lot of people say like a business was founded in the 1990s. They have a very concrete and strict way of doing things, right? So we've talked to an actual B2B coaching business before, and they still do like most of their things on paperwork, right? And when you're trying to bring all that digital with an AI agent, there are some things that you will have to sacrifice. Some people in New Zealand don't even use CRMs that hardcore, meaning like they don't judge all the data, they don't throw as much data as they could into it. It's just a reference system, So time in the market gives them the flexibility to actually adapt to these different technologies and our solutions. And as a result, this is the first cycle. This is just a few of the first lines of our first campaign with the B2B coaches. So you see this icebreaker here is all of this is put into instantly. And the icebreaker is just the first few lines of the AI system that I've developed makes for you. And then everything else is set in copy. So the goal of the icebreaker is to kind of put their guard down and come off as us actually like having a look at them and seeing what they're about. And then the copy is the static copy in the email campaign is meant to reinforce that. And these are just a few lines that we've got here, and for only one of the steps that we've got. So this is just one example here. And it says, so icebreaker would be something like, hey John, love that you had your journey, from this company to this company, also really resonate with your podcast. So by doing the perplexity step on the research side of things, so that's this step here, we would have seen that they have a podcast or something by chance, and then the AI would have capitalized on that and said a like full personalized line that can be completely like independent of the copy and still make sense. So it says, it would be like, hey John, like love your podcast or something, wanted to run something by you, new to the B2B coaching space, but I made something interesting a few months ago that runs perfectly that runs pretty well. To cut a long story short, it is an AI-powered system that gets new leads and brings back old leads, cost sense to run. So this is talking about our lead re-engagement and the lead outreach strategies that we've got. Right, so this is what we're going with. We're going with like the idea of like having that cycle, depending on how each campaign goes, will dictate how many times we actually go over this over and over. But that's essentially it. Now let me show you the so this is the original. These are just a few of the URLs that we've got on Apollo. So if you don't know Apollo, it's a kind of database that is scraped off LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it's quite expensive to run everything and then export them into your own database. So what we're actually leveraging quite well here is we get these URLs right from Apollo. So if you look at these columns here, these are all like the qualification sort of steps that we put into place, or the people that we're searching for essentially. There's a couple life insurance, like we had to play around with insurance as well, and essentially this outputs like a whole list of people who fall under these categories together. So then you take that URL, and to actually export them into a database, it's expensive. So what this lets you do, this is Appify. It's a scraper of the scraper for the original LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And by doing this, we can run it actually very, very cheaply. And you can see how I've run this, and we get a set of data that's just waiting to be like put into a system, right? So by doing this, we can connect them through APIs, and this is the make.com setup that we've got that essentially looks at that dataset ID that you find in this tab here. We copy it and paste it here, and through the API, it just scrapes all that information, puts it into Make, and then we can do something with that data. Now, originally, I didn't actually have this exact setup because of a few things. So firstly, I didn't have these two. What this step does is it, once the automation starts, it just sleeps. And the reason I put that is because when I was running it off this and then straight into Perplexity and then these two AI steps here, the Perplexity actually had a timeout for the API of 45 minutes, and it was just constantly running 45 minutes over and over again. And then when it actually got to the 45-minute mark, it said like, this is the timeout for using our API. And then I completely like lost track of where we were and stuff. So which is why I put these filters here. Looking at the campaign results, we said, okay, well, we were at bundle 900 something, very close to finishing. So we got to like run the whole thing again from where it was, but it was still generating duplicates, right? So then that's why I put this check step, which checks for the existing client by the LinkedIn URL. And if it's non-existent, then it keeps going. And then this sleeps function times out for 2 seconds, which I found was enough for the Perplexity step to run for like longer than 45 minutes on its own, like no issues. I think that would have solved it. And then from this, we get 2 filters. So one is to check if so this is the hyper qualified check for people like under 50 people in the organization, and if they are in New Zealand. And the other one is if they have been founded over the last 10 years, which puts them within like the business coaching perspective, that puts them in a newer position in the market, which for us is like, okay, these guys are more flexible, probably more open to change to compete with the older, bigger guys, right? And again, the check here to see make sure that they're in New Zealand, because remember, everyone else just gets put into a general list if they are in Australia. So that's what this check is for. And that's pretty much our qualification step. We don't actually need an AI step to see and qualify them, because we're just taking all of this chunk of data that Apollo gives us, and we're comparing it against these slight correlations of what we think is an ideal customer. And then this last AI step here, so once it goes through the ultra qualified step, the LinkedIn message is just I should actually run over these 2 steps here, which is where the whole icebreaker comes from originally. So Perplexity, we're just researching the whole decision maker and the founder or the director that we found from Apollo, and then it searches them up, and to be like for different campaigns, you can go like, okay, so their first name, their title within the company, their company name will result in them being researched, but then you can do like mission or something, and then it'll come up with anything that they've said about their mission. But we just chose to keep it general and research them as a whole, which brings a ton of data, puts it into ChatGPT, and from this we pretty much prompted it saying, take this and make an icebreaker for an email copy. And that's when it would say, hey John, love your podcast, I actually resonate with this point, and so on. And what the step does, once it's super qualified into the LinkedIn step, it just pretty much rephrases it for a LinkedIn context, right? And then we add it to the row with the actual LinkedIn step. And let me show you that Google Sheet as well. So this took 2 hours to run. For context, the first email campaign with no systems at all that we launched, we just had it instantly, took us about a week and a half to enrich and extract 100 leads. Let me just cover up all these emails in case this goes viral. But essentially, this took 2 hours to run, and the green filters here is just checking for doubles, and we check the doubles through the LinkedIn URL. If it's obviously the same LinkedIn URL, then it's the same person. And this is the copy part of everyone who is qualified for the email. And then if it's LinkedIn qualified, it says we get a yes, and then the LinkedIn message here. And we got a lot of LinkedIn messages across 1,000 leads. So anyway, of these 1,000 leads, we got about, what was it? Move my head here. 895 emails, and of them 870 were verified, and then it turned out that only 2 of them were unverified. So it was essentially like 892 leads. We only sacrificed 100 that didn't have emails from the data that we scraped. So it was overall pretty good, and yeah, we just took this as a CSV, put it into Instantly, because we don't have the Instantly API to just do it straight into Make. That's why I didn't have that here. We'd have the plan to do that. It's quite expensive, so we just have the standard one. And then one other thing that we could have done, but I actually simply didn't think of it, is having a Phantom Buster step that takes all the LinkedIn messages and then just runs all these messages for you. What Phantom Buster is it's pretty much a bot that mimics a human going through like the LinkedIn UI and messages people for you. So creates connections and then puts in the messages that you sent it here. But that's essentially it, right? It took 2 hours to run. In a couple of days, we had the copy ready, all the steps ready, and ready to get into it. And this has been live for the past few hours. We haven't even glanced at the results yet, but we just know that it's sending well. And that's essentially what we're aiming to do over and over and over again. So based on these results, we'll pivot, iterate, look at different options. But the main thing that we have noticed is that this is a window where we can use this exact system to do so many leads enriched for so cheap. And yeah, we think business coaching is a perfect place to start. The reason we didn't do any more, again, insurance or any car dealerships or anything like that is because we want to do this with like the most credibility and like high leverage possible, because if it works for us, a B2B context agency, then it will work for a B2B coach more likely than an insurance or car dealership place. So that's it for the video today. I'll probably update you guys on another video looking at like the new strategy or the new steps based off of the results that we get for this. But this is a crucial step in our journey, and I wanted to share with you guys, wanted to show you what the real struggles of an agency is. Although very common, not a lot of people can actually deal with it. So if these systems actually work and we become, profitable in all of this, then you guys were here first and you saw it all from the beginning. So I just want to say I appreciate you for sticking to us with this in this journey. But yeah, that's it for the video today. I'll throw in some more updates, some more videos about other tutorials, and that's it.